Hopefully you guys got some coffee and some refreshments. We're going to kick off today talking about numbers, and I know a lot of creatives just kind of shy away from that. It's not super fun to talk about. It's something that's kind of overwhelming and causes a lot of anxiety. But something that I like to do is kind of break it down into a more simple way. First off, like I said, I'm very excited to be here. It's been super fun to see everybody here this morning. I am the CEO and founder of Profit Priority. So we are a bookkeeping and fractional CFO agency that serves other creatives. So lots of photographers, lots of other creative agencies, brand and web designers, and people like that. A little bit about me. I started down the path of being an accountant, and I love finances and numbers, obviously. And I quickly saw that I didn't really like the way that I was doing things to other business owners, and especially other creatives. So I started working at an accounting firm, and quickly was like, this is not it. People were going out the door at the end of tax season and still feeling confused, and their faces were like completely blank. And I'm like, that's not what I want to do. I want to help people more than that. And so kind of what we do here is break down things to where it's not in accounting language, it's not in accounting jargon, it's not in things that's just going to be like, okay, I want to go hide in a closet and like not ever look at finances a little bit anymore. A little bit about myself. I live north of Dayton on a farm. I have 2 little kiddos and a husband, and it's been really fun to really get involved in the community here and in Dayton and more locally, because I work with people all over the US, and sometimes it feels like a little hole and I don't get to see people anytime. So it's really fun to come out today. And today we're going to be talking about really initially building a foundation around finances from a biblical worldview, because before we dive into that, I kind of want to cover a few things about what the Bible says about finances, because it's very important to like look at what they're saying and see what Jesus says about the finances. And then from there, we're going to be talking about what your finances actually tell you, and then things inside of your reports and how to read them and how to really set yourself up for success by looking at your finances. And then we're going to be looking at financial goals. So right now with our CFO clients, we are working towards 2024. We are budgeting out and projecting out for 2024. And a lot of people are doing 2024 goal setting and planning. And we want to kind of look at it from a financial perspective as well as from a creative perspective. And with that comes budgeting and how budgeting increases profitability and how to look at that. A lot of people hear the word budget and is like, ew, like I don't want to have to budget, and it's restrictive and I don't want to do that. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And then my favorite part is understanding how cash flow works and how it impacts your business. It's the biggest thing that I see business owners struggle with, and it's the biggest thing that business owners, it will drive their business into the ground, because there's a lot of things inside of the cash flow that people do not really pay attention to. Like I said, I had worked at an accounting firm. I saw this. I saw people coming in and we would do their bookkeeping once a year. They weren't looking at their finances. They were not paying attention to what was going on, and they would leave. And there were so many times where I'm like, this business could be 2, 3, 4, 5 times is the size that it is if only they would look at their numbers and if only they would look at their finances. Before we get started, into like all of this, I want a little bit of interaction from everybody, if you can. It's only raising your hand. Have you ever felt overwhelmed whenever you're thinking about money and finances and running a business? Okay, there we go. Great job, guys. Okay. Have you ever felt that you do not have the capability or capacity to manage your business finances? Okay. All right. And then have you ever felt that you want to have a clear understanding of finances and business and cash flow and running a business, but you just don't know where to start? Okay, so obviously everyone can see the amount of hands that were raised, and I want people to think about that, because so many times businesses come to me and they're like, I'm the only one that just doesn't know how to run my business and look at my finances. I'm the only one that doesn't know how to budget or manage my cash flow. There's so many other people out there, and especially in the creative space, that is right there with you. So I just want to acknowledge that. And then really what I want to think about now is a few questions. We'll go through these really quick, but I want you to think to yourself, what is money? And what role does money play in your life? And then how have you been a good steward of your money and how have you not? And I'll be honest, there's times that I look back and I'm like, that was probably not the best decision and that's probably not the best way that I should have managed my money. And I know a lot of other people are that way too. Money is a tool that we use for good and can be used for bad. It is like a brick. It can be something that you can build up a house with. It can also be something that you can throw through a window and break a window. So your money can be used for good things and for bad things. It's not in of itself good or bad. It's just a tool to help you get to a certain point in your business and in your life. Looking at kind of the biblical foundations of money. And this was very interesting whenever I first found this out. But there's 500 verses on prayer and faith in the Bible. And there are over 2,000 verses on money, which is just crazy to me. And then thinking at the parables, over 40% of Jesus's parables are about money. So he talks about money so much. And I know if you've went to the parables, like events and stuff, you guys are working through parables, you guys see this. And there's so much that Jesus says about money. And really, if the God of the universe focused so much attention on educating and telling us about money and finances, we need to make this a priority in our lives. We need to make sure that we understand what's going on, make sure that we have a clear picture, even if it's a little bit scary, even if it's a little bit overwhelming. And then from there, like, God gives us everything we have, everything in this room, everything we see, everything that you and I have, it is God's. And we are to be stewards of that, including our finances. And really, whenever we look at what we do and how we are managing, it reveals our character and it reveals what we do with our money, reveals what our priorities are in life. So we want to kind of pay attention to what's going on. Really, it's interesting. He says, he who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and he who is unrighteous in very little things also is unrighteous in much. And that's from Luke 16:10. And so we want to make sure that what we have, we're being diligent with. Okay, so now that we have a biblical foundation laid, I want to next go into managing your finances and understanding what they're saying. So if you think about your finances in your business, literally any part of your finances, there's probably something that you want to change. Maybe it's profit margins, maybe it's sales, maybe it's how much you pay yourself, maybe it's going full-time or whatever it might be. There's probably something that you want to change. And I'm reading this book, which for any agency owner that's out there today, should really read this book if you haven't read it. It's called Come Up for Air by Nick Sonnenberg. And he says multiple times in this book, a business's growth is only limited to how fast you can retrieve data. And this goes in all areas of business, but if we specifically focus on finances, how fast can you pull your reports and know that they're accurate? How fast are you able to see who your highest client is? How fast are you able to see what your profit margins are? And so we want to be able to grab that really fast. And really, whenever I'm thinking of this, it's not, do you have a bookkeeping system in place? Do you have an accounting system in place? It's more so, are your reports telling you what you need to know? Or are they set up in a way that you understand them? And quickly, before we go this, some of you guys might know what a balance sheet is. Some of you guys might know what a profit and loss is. But I want to quickly look at this because these are very important things that we want to pay attention to on a month-to-month basis. And I want you to pay attention to both of these as well as cash flow, and we're going to be looking into that a little bit later. Your balance sheet is really what consists of your assets, liabilities, and equity. So this is what you own, what you owe, and kind of what the business is worth after you pay off all your debt. And then your profit and loss shows things like revenue, which is your sales, cost of goods sold, gross profit margins, operating expenses, operating income, and all of that good stuff, and then your net profit. And those are things that you want to pay attention to. Really, the biggest and most important thing is we want to pay attention to our bottom line, which is our net profit, and then we want to pay attention to our cash flow. I keep coming back to cash flow because it's something that so many people struggle with. Looking at all of these things, the thing that we want to really look at whenever we're planning for 2024, we're going to talk about budgeting, we're going to talk about projections and looking at things. But I want to take a step back and I want you to look at what are your personal values and personal goals and what you want out of life. So often people look at their finances, they look at their reports or kind of what they want to hit on their sales year over year. And even myself, I find myself being like, okay, I want to hit this. And I've had to adjust my 2024 plans because I'm like, you know what? That doesn't align with my values and what I want for next year. It was going to create me to be working more than I wanted to. I want to be home with my kids, be out on the farm with our chickens and our garden and stuff. And what I was planning on for 2024 is not what I want, because once you go back and see what you want and your values in life, that's what really helps. And then from there, we're going to kind of look at what do you need to bring home in order to achieve those goals in your personal life. So we keep coming back to personal life because we have the business and the personal. It's going to be separate, but it's what funds your personal life. If you want to pay off your house, pay off credit card debt, go on a trip, put your child through college, whatever it might be, what do you need in order to do that? And then from there, we're going to work backwards. So if you need to bring home X amount of money, then how are we going to get to that point? If you're there, great. What are we going to do? Let's kind of adjust and see. And looking at kind of really working from the bottom up, we're going to then look at the profit at the end of the day. So sales minus expenses is profit. And we're going to see, okay, this is what we have. And then how do we adjust? So there's 3 different ways that you can increase kind of what you're bringing home and what you want to get out of the business. And one way, increase your sales, increase your prices, and then cut expenses. And I'm not one that just completely goes, okay, let's slash expenses, because a lot of times the expenses in our business is what impacts our sales and our growth. It's investments. We are using software and tech to make our job faster and easier. We might be putting out ads and marketing efforts to increase sales. So I don't want to completely cut expenses, but it's something that definitely we look at. All right, so whenever we are now looking at a budget, we create a holistic budget. And our holistic budget is something that I look at from you got your personal goals and personal values. We got our profit and loss, which we want to create, which is, okay, what are our sales going to be? What do we think our expenses are going to be? And all of that can be gathered by past data. And if you don't have, like I said, going back to how quick you can get that data, if you don't have that, then it's very difficult to know what you're going to be able to do going forward. You need to be able to pull your balance sheet, pull your profit and loss, see where the trends are, see what the averages are for certain expense categories, see how your growth is. And it seems like a lot, but if you just sit down and pull them and look at them, it can tell you so much about the business. And this verse here, Luke 14:28, it says, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it?" And that's really interesting to me, because as we are looking into 2024 and as we're looking into creating our financial plans for 2024, we really need to look and see what it's going to cost us in order to achieve those goals and in order to achieve those things that you might want for your business, for your personal life, whatever it might be. And then really, I want to tell a little bit of story about a client of mine. A few years ago, she came to us, and she had a great business. Her sales were really great, and her profit was pretty much non-existent though. And so there was an issue. Sales were great. She was working full-time in her agency. I guess at the time it was a single consulting business. It's now grown into an agency. And she was working on her own. She was supporting her household, and her profit was, like I said, it wasn't there. So there was an issue there. And when she came to us, she was having her accountant do the bookkeeping, which is kind of a thing of mine, because a lot of accountants that do bookkeeping are only doing it at the end of the year to get all of their tax stuff ready in alignment to file the taxes. And so these bookkeeping numbers and the reports she was looking at, they were not accurate. The bank balances were off, the cash was off, there was random things put in random categories that didn't make any sense. There was no insight to be given. And that's what I saw time and time and time again at the accounting firm whenever I was working there. And that's why I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this. I need to help people just like her and help people really understand what's going on. So what we did was we first evaluated the reports, made sure her chart of accounts were set up, made sure all of her categories were made in a way that made sense to her business and her agency. And then from there, we pulled historical data. So once we knew we were looking at accurate reports, we were able to then see, okay, what do we need to do? What is the cost per hire for an agency? How much is this hire going to increase revenue and sales? And we can look at that all by looking at our numbers. And then after that, what we did is we implemented a projection and a budget with all the information and guidance that we were able to give her. And she consistently looks at it day in and day out. She looks at our cash flow projections. She looks at the budget to make sure that they're in alignment. And let me tell you, she has grown so much in the past 2 years of working with us. She has tripled her profit. She has tripled her sales, and she has just like completely gone off to having a full-on agency and buying her dream home and doing all of this stuff. And that all came from looking at the finances and looking at what is going on and looking at her KPIs and seeing how it needs to be operating and stuff like that. Around budgeting, there's a lot of things that we need to consider. Looking at, do we have any debt? Do we have any business credit card debt or any business credit card loans or anything like that? We want to look at what are you taking out as owner's pay, owner's draw. If you're, this gets a little bit accounting talk, but if you are an LLC, you take your pay through owner's draw. And so that doesn't necessarily show up on the profit and loss. That is something that's on the balance sheet, and that's something that people get stumped on a lot because they're like, great, awesome, I'm profiting really good, my margins are great, but where's the cash in my bank account? And that comes down to, okay, you could be taking a bunch of owner's draw, even if you're an S Corp or C Corps, which I don't really see a lot of C Corps nowadays. It's kind of an old strategy. But S Corps, owners run themselves through payroll, so it does affect the profit and loss. You see it affecting the end of the bottom line number. And a lot of times they will take additional draws on top of that. And so again, that goes down to affecting how much cash is in the bank account. Again, things like paying taxes, and then, like I said, loans. That all comes down on affecting the bank account, but doesn't necessarily affect your profit and loss that you're looking at. So if you get an idea, like there's more than just a P&L. There's more than just looking at what's in your bank account, and we need to look at the full holistic picture whenever we're looking at things. And so as we're looking into budgeting for 2024, I want you to kind of reshape your mindset around budgeting. It's not necessarily limiting you on how much you can spend. It's allowing you to invest in areas that you might have not known that you could invest in. It's allowing you and giving you the marketing funds that you didn't know you had. And times it is limiting you. It's telling you, okay, you know what, I can't in good conscience make this decision and spend this money. It's really, the whole point is for you to create the budget and for you to tell your money where to go instead of you logging into your bank account and being like, okay, where did my money go? Because there's no money. And then you have to go through all your transactions and not sure where all your money is at. So you want to make sure that you are in charge of the money instead of the money kind of dictating how you are living. And one thing that I see a lot is people will operate off of their bank account balance. If they're not operating off their profit and loss, they're most likely operating their bank account balance, which, like I said, there's a lot of things going on. And so we want to make sure we have a good plan for this cash, make sure we have a good plan for what's coming out in the next couple of days and the next couple of weeks, because if we don't, it's not going to be good. All right, so we're looking at creating business budgets, and we're kind of look through what it is. And so obviously looking at the plan of, okay, what do I want for next year? What do I want to bring home? Like I said at the beginning, I want you to be able to go back and gather the last 12 months, or if you don't have that, the last 3 months, whatever you might have. If you have more than that, that's even better. And kind of seeing what's happening month over month. What's your highs? What's your lows? How are things working? We work with a lot of like travel, elopement, wedding photographers, and they're the ones that I would say probably get hits the most with highs and lows, because they have really high wedding season income, and then January, February, March, it's like dead. And we have to kind of balance that and make sure that we have a good plan for those dead months. And I know same thing for some of our agency owners. They have kind of some slower times in the summer times, but we know going into Q4, things are going to pick up, and they have been picking up for our agency owners. So we want to see what things are going on. And then we're going to look at how far out are we going to budget? How far out are we going to look at? And like I said, 2024 is great to be able to go do a whole entire year. But then from there, I want you to be able to split it out by month because you have those highs and lows months and because you can see what's going on. And then from there, you're going to look at and see, okay, what do I think is going to come in? What came in last year for my income and my revenue? What was my growth? What do I think I'm going to be able to do? We as a firm, we're adding a couple new team members, and so I know that's going to give us the capacity to grow even more. So whenever I look at things, I'm looking at, okay, in the previous years, when we add a new team member, what does that add to the sales? What does that add to the revenue at the top? And so I can kind of see that and plug that in my 2024 because I have historical data to do that. And then from there, obviously, we're going to be looking at our expenses. Like I said, if you have the profit and loss, it's a great way to start. You can export it to Excel or numbers or something. You can take averages and start there and then plug one-time things in here or there. Like we're going to be dropping some more in marketing. We're going to be dropping some more stuff in 2024 that we haven't in the past. So I'll plug in those things that I know I'm going to be starting next year. And then we're going to review and we're going to look at where are we at? Are we going to be able to hit our goals with this? Are we going to be able to make the profit that we want? Where's our sales at? How are you going to be able to fulfill that sales number? If you want to make $150,000 in sales for the year, how? If you want to hit 7 figures in sales, how? And then I want you to be able to break down what services and what products and whatever it might be, how you're going to fulfill them. And that's going to give you the goal of like, okay, I need to sign 3 retainer clients every single month in order to be able to hit this goal. I need to be able to do one-off projects, like 5 per quarter in order to do this. So I want you to take that, break it down. And then things that I want you to add in on your budget that isn't normally on the profit and loss are things like budgeting for building up your emergency fund. The emergency fund that I have my clients do is around 3 months or 3 to 6 months of expenses. And it kind of depends. If you're a business that has retainer services, you have historical data that shows that you have a very well-established business. You might not need it this much. But to get started, I really do suggest to have that 6 months of building in. And in Genesis 41, 47 through 49, it says, during the 7 plentiful years on the earth, produced abundantly, and he gathered up all of the food in the 7 years which occurred to the land of Egypt, and put food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields and around it, and Joseph stored up grain in great abundance and in sands, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured. And so we see in Genesis that when we have some really good months in business, we need to prepare for the months that are not so good. We see the economy is not doing super great right now. It can be affecting some businesses. I do see trajectory going up in my clients, but it has kind of dampened our 2023 vision and goals. So a lot of my clients, though, have this emergency fund in place and has this savings in place. And I want this to be a separate bank account so that it's there. And it's not necessarily just for the business, it's also for making sure that you're able to pay yourself, making sure that if you have team members you got to pay out, they're still getting paid, you are still getting paid. It's not going to affect your personal finances, but it is there. And then really looking at what you're taking out in your owner's draw, like I said, budgeting for any tax payments, anything like that. I know we have quarterly tax payments. We have next year, like beginning of next year, we'll have Q4 payments, and then a couple months later, we'll have Q1 payments and any tax bill due. So that's going to be coming up, and we want to plan for that. And then having different bank accounts set up for this is going to be great. So if you have a tax savings account, if you have a business savings account for this emergency fund that you kind of move money over every single month and then don't touch it until you need it, is kind of what you want to be able to have. All right, and then, like I said, my favorite part is cash flow. We focus a lot about cash flow with my clients. Something that we do is we do weekly cash flow projections. It kind of depends on what type of client we're working with, but a lot of our CFO clients, they are agencies. They have a lot of payroll coming out. We have a couple of them that bill out all at the first of the month, and so we have to sustain that, all of that income and all of that cash coming in for the whole entire month. And so we got to be able to have a good plan for this cash and make sure we know what's going on. Imagine that you sit down, you look at, say this is like in a couple days, you look at September's reports, you're like, this is great, I hit all of my income goals, hit all of my profit goals, expenses were in alignment, and feeling really good about things, feeling good about going to Q4. And then a few days later, you go and you have to run payroll if you have a team. And you double check to make sure that you have enough in your bank account. And all of a sudden, oh, I barely have enough. And your credit card bill is coming out in 2 days too. So what are you gonna do? And so your bubbles burst and you're like, okay, now I gotta figure out this problem because I did not manage what I had and I didn't plan for this. And so really, when we look at it, it's a cash flow thing. So you weren't planning for your payroll to come out. You weren't planning for your credit card to come out. Maybe a few weeks ago, you invested in something or bought a new computer or did something here and there, and because you had a lot of cash in your account, and you're like, okay, great, I can go buy a new computer. I can go do this or that, invest in this new software. But we weren't looking forward, and we weren't looking into other things. And if we look at another client of mine, we'll call her Emily, and she has an agency, and she came to me at the beginning of the year, and profit was great, sales were great. She had a steady 35% profit margin, which is a good profit margin for an agency, which is basically looking at what your profit is based on what your sales are. And she had a problem. Every single month, she was strapped for cash. She couldn't really make payroll. She was then moving money from her personal account into the business account, and then she also knew that she would need to pay herself too because she's an S-Corp, and so it was like this continual cycle of, okay, money moving from a business account to the personal, and then money moving from the personal to the business, and it was just creating this whole headache, and there was no plan or structure or anything. She also didn't have any type of savings or any type of emergency fund, so that's where she had to invest her own personal money. And her husband also worked for her agency too, so then it was really putting a lot of financial stress on their personal finances, because then she was draining their personal account, and then where are they going to get money to pay for their child's schooling or whatever. And really, what we can learn from this is that we changed the way that she billed her retainer clients. So we kind of implemented a new system and a new structure. She was not putting her retainer clients on recurring payments, so she was fighting with getting invoices paid. They were out for 30, 45 days. She was fighting with that. And then so we implemented a new billing structure that made them pay, like it got their credit card information and automatic. And you know what? She was really scared to implement this new structure, but she went ahead and made this change, and not one of her clients argued with it. They're like, oh great, I don't have to pay an invoice, because a lot of times the invoices get lost in emails and so forth. Whenever I sign up for a service or I outsource something in my business, I'm like, okay, do you have automatic billing? Because I don't want to have to go in and pay, because I'll probably forget it, and then it'll create frustration, and it's just not a good thing. The other things that we did was we worked through when she was invoicing. And so everyone's a little bit different on how they invoice. But for her specifically, she would invoice all at one time at the beginning of the month. And so what that was causing is all of the influx of cash was coming out one time. And then, like I said, we had to manage it going all throughout the month. And instead, I'm like, why don't we kind of set up when new clients sign, why don't we set it up at that point, and then next month, they get billed on the 20th. The next month they get billed on the 20th. So it kind of spreads out that cash to where it's not an injection of cash, and then end of the month it's like, where's all my cash? I need to run payroll. So we implemented that, and then we also went in we were looking at how much she was taking out in the owner's draw as well, because she was going through taking out a bunch. She's like, where did all this money go out of my bank account? And she was taking an overwhelming amount. And so her cash flow month over month for the year, looking at January to July, she was losing thousands of dollars of cash month over month. And so that's why it's important, because her profit and loss looked great. Her cash flow reports, she was losing money. And so that's where the problem was, and we needed to solve it. The cool thing is that when we're looking at the cash flow, it really dictates what is a healthy business and what's not. And we see that when we have a healthy, steady flow of cash coming in and it's continually building time over time again, that's what's a healthy business. And when you're losing the cash, like her, that's unhealthy. And it was going to affect her. And I'm like, I had to have a little bit of a sit down and be like, hey, look, like, here's what's happening. And you're going to run this business. It's not going to be able to sustain itself. You're going to have to end up getting a part-time job. Your husband's going to have to go work somewhere else or something, because you're hurting your own personal finances as well as the business finances. She had to cut some team members so that she could get through this, but now things are doing good. Now things are working through. If we look specifically at what cash flow is, cash flow inflow is, like I said, money coming into the account, so any sales, any deposits, anything like that. Cash outflow is things like all of your money going out of the account. So it's pretty simple like that. You can look at your bank statement, see what's coming in, what's going out, and that's going to tell you month over month what's doing good. If you don't have the reports, you can look at your bank statement and it literally tells you what you started with and what you have at the end of the month, and that can kind of give you a good idea of what the cash flow is. And we want to make sure that we are focusing on, like I said, any credit cards, anything like that. Make sure that we are paying attention. All right, so if we're looking at the process of cash flow forecasting, what we do is it's the process of projecting all of the highs, like inflows, and the high outflows, or the low outflows. And then this helps us with knowing how to budget, when to invest in a new team member, when to invest in some business education or whatever. And it gives us a plan for identifying shortages in advance. So we did this with one of our clients. Like I said, we do week by week because her business needs it. And we came to her a few months ago, and I'm like, in 3 weeks, you're going to be out of cash. Like, what are you going to do about this? And so from there, she was like, okay, thanks. Like, I got that. That's why I hired you. Like, she wasn't scared or anything. She's like, we got to figure this out, because she has a team to pay. She has a lot of stuff going out. And in 4 days, she had $60,000 in the pipeline, and she signed every single one of them. And that week, that was going to be her lowest week, was her highest week in revenue and in cash. And so the whole point is to look at where are things happening, and that's not the story for everybody. If you get to that week that's low in your cash and you're not able to fund it, you're not able to make things through, hopefully you have that emergency fund in place that you can help with that cash. So when I'm looking at cash flow, I'm solely looking at the business checking account instead of like all your tax savings and stuff, because that's dedicated for when times are bad. So the whole idea is to be able to tell yourself and know how much money you're going to have in 3 weeks, in 3 months, and 6 months, and go so forth. It helps with if you want to get a studio, if you want to move, if you want to do any of that type of stuff, if you want to, again, hire a new team member, you know when you can do it because you have the cash built up. When we are looking at cash flow forecasting, now this is very similar to the way that we budget and the way that we see things. But like I said, we want to look at the full picture, look at everything that's going on. You want to know how far out you're forecasting and see how far out you're doing it. Are you doing it by week? Are you doing it by month? Are you doing it by year? I have a client that I'm currently doing all 3 by, because of what they need and what their goals are in the next 5 years. So if you're just starting out, a monthly forecasting is a great place to start. You can see month over month kind of where you're going to be at. You want to kind of look at all of your cash sources. So how are you getting paid? check, cash? When do they pay you? Do they give you deposits for services that you're offering 6 months down the road? Are you opting them in on a payment plan? How are you setting up your payments, and when are they coming in? And then from there, you're going to list all of your outflows. And so that's going to be things like all of your expenses, and then it's going to be things like all of any credit cards that you have coming out, and then any type of owner's draw, any type of tax payments, things like that. With credit cards, I come back to this because a lot of people don't understand that you could make a purchase on your credit card 2 months ago and it doesn't hit your account until today. So something you made back in, let's see, when is this? Like the end of July, you could just now, I guess, not really, I'd have to look at it. But something that you can make like weeks in the past is just now hitting the bank account. And so that's already thought, you're not even thinking about that purchase that you made, and now it's hitting your bank account. So you want to be looking at that. And then from there, you want to make sure that you are reviewing, auditing, looking at your forecast, adjusting each period. So if you're struggling on a week-to-week basis, you're checking your bank account constantly. You don't know how you're going to be able to do this. So then you get on the sales frenzy, you hop on and try to do all your sales calls and try to book more sales. And really, if anyone does marketing and sales, that just doesn't always work out really well, because then you are really striving after that dollar amount, and that doesn't come across to your customer really well, or your future customer. So you don't want to hop on and be stressed and try to get sales, because you're not going to land as many. And so then you're going to plan for any unexpected things. So if you, historically in the past, you can see that certain months are low, certain months are higher than some. You have all of your subscriptions are on yearly plans, and they come out all in July. So all of my stuff comes out in July and August, and I use a lot of software in my business, and it's very expensive. So I have to plan for that, because that's a one-time thing that hits my accounts. So I want you to plan for things like that, and then plan for any other type of unexpected things. The thing that you can also do is create different scenarios. So you can create a very conservative scenario on, you're going to just follow everything really good. You're going to create a better and the best scenario, to where the better ones, you're going to sign some more clients than what you thought. You're going to hire another person that you might be able to increase your sales by. And the best is like just blowing it out. Like, this is better than what you could ever dreamed of. So that you can look at different scenarios as you're going through the entire month, and you know kind of where you need to be paying attention to. You can create a year cash flow projection. Like I said, or you can do monthly, or you can do weekly. A current client of mine, we do weekly. Like I said, we do a lot of weekly. And then we also do monthly for all of 2024, because then we want to see where are we at, where are things going. And then in one of my clients, we are doing a 5-year cash projection, because they are wanting to move buildings and buy a new building, or either build or something. So it's like, how much money are we going to have? How much money can we spend on either a down payment on building a building? From there, we see month by month, or week by week, month by month, year by year, and then that determines what our decisions are. So if we look back at really kind of what we need to set in place, how many of you guys have just one bank account for your business? Okay, and that's not bad. You have one bank account. That's better than some people don't have any, and they run it through their personal. How many of you guys have like 2 to 3? Okay, and then how many of you guys have like 7? Okay, all right. There were some people that didn't have hands raised, and I'm like, okay, yeah. So something else too I want to talk about is the structure of how we do bank accounts and how we set up the bank accounts. Has anybody read the book Profit First? Okay, all right, cool. This book it's a really good book. I would advise to listen to it on Audible, because it's full of a lot of numbers and statistics, and even for me who likes numbers, reading it was just a little challenge to get through. But the whole goal and what he does and what Mike says in this book is to really work from paying yourself first. So when you're thinking about, all right, what are my income, what are my expenses, we want to make sure that you're getting paid first in order, and then on like whatever's left is what you operate your business off of. So if you want to be paying yourself $5,000, $8,000 a month, whatever it might be, then how much money do you have left over? And that's kind of what you're going to plan and budget off of. And then the way that I like to set up my bank accounts for my clients, and myself included, is he recommends I think he actually recommends 9, which is a lot of bank accounts to manage. But I like to simplify that down into 3 or 4 bank accounts. So you have your OpEx bank account, and your operating a bank account is going to be like your main checking bank account. And this is where money is going to come in, it's where money is going to flow out of, and this is like your main core thing. And it's what you're going to do your cash flow projection off of, because this is what you're operating off of. And then you're also going to have a tax savings account, because no one wants to hit tax time and have a bunch of taxes owed, or get to your quarterly tax payments and have to pay a bunch of money and don't have it. And then you're also going to have your emergency fund, which again, I want either 3 to 6 months of business expenses in there. And these are like necessary business expenses. They're not like frivolous, like things that you want to do. And then from there, I want another 4th business savings account. So this is going to be the last one that you fill up, and the last one where you put money off of. And so at the end of every single month, I will move money to these different bank accounts. So I see where things are at, see what my profit is. I will move about 25 to 30% into my tax, 20 to 25% of my profit into my tax savings account. And then from there, I will move around like 30% to my business savings or my emergency fund account. So you first fill up your emergency fund. Once you have that 3 to 6 months in, then you will go and fill up your business savings. And that's for things like you want to invest in new equipment, you want to, again, I come back to hiring team members because I have a lot of agencies that are going through that process right now. And we all know that if you hire new team members, then you're going to have a lot of expenses coming up front before they're able to bring in revenue. So for me, I've seen that it takes a good 4 months of paying them out before I can see revenue coming in from that team member. So I want to plan for that in that business savings account. And then really what we look at is once we have all of those things built up, and once we have a plan for filling up those accounts, I want you to have a good baseline of what you're going to keep inside of your operating account, inside of your main checking account. And this all comes back down to looking at what your cash flow's doing. And it's why we really look at a week-to-week cash flow projection, because, like I said, different clients bill out different times. They have payroll set either monthly or biweekly or weekly, and so we look at things like that. And so when we see when our biggest, highest week of payments are, that's going to dictate how much I need in my checking account and how much I need in my checking account or operating expense account. That's where it's going to be at. Depends on the size of the business, depends on what you're doing. But I have a couple clients that I'm like, okay, you need to always, no matter what, have $12,000 in your checking account, and then you'll be good. Anything on top of that, you can move over to your emergency fund if you need to restock that. You can move over to your business savings fund if you need to restock that. And then once you have that, and you continue to build up you have your emergency fund, you have your tax savings fund you're consistently doing, and you have cash left over, then you can give yourself a little bonus. You can pay yourself extra. But the whole goal is to get these bank accounts built up to where you're not worried about if you're going to be able to make payroll, if you're going to be able to cover that credit card, and so forth. And then if we're looking at kind of a review, the Bible takes our management of money very seriously. Like I said, over 40% of Jesus's parables is about money management. It's about how we handle our finances. It's about what we do. In 1 Timothy 6:17, it says, "As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on uncertainty and the riches, but on God who richly provides us with everything to enjoy." And I know we're talking about money. We're all in business to make money. That's what we're doing. That's why we work, we make money, we provide for our families, provide for ourselves. That's what we do. But something that comes up, especially with a lot of believers, is, well, what happens whenever we're focusing too much on money and too much on what we want to do? And I know for myself, there are times where I'm like, okay, I want to do this. These are my goals. And because I'm a numbers person, I'm constantly looking at money. And there's times where I'm like, you know what? This is starting to become an idol in my life that I want to hit these things. So when you are planning for 2024 and planning in your business and planning in everything, I want you to hold it very loosely and let God direct you to where if something doesn't work out just right, if your projections don't work out like what you think it is, that's okay. And you can look back and be like, okay, where can I change this? Where can I accomplish different things? Where can I adjust things to be better? But know that God's the ultimate director in all of this and in all of your finances and everything that you do. It's something that I, over the past 3 years, have been able to see in my business. I started out my business to really stay home with my kids and to not really be in full-time working mom mode. And again, I just didn't really like tax. I didn't like doing tax returns, and I wanted to help business owners on the side. So I thought I was just going to have a couple clients. And now, 3 years later, I have a team of 6, and I am I could never have, what God has opened up and the doors He's opened up, I could never have dreamed of this. It's not anything that I wanted to do. It is now because I love it so much, and I see that this is where God needs me and where God wants me, because I'm able to educate and help so many other people. And just like you guys in this room, I'm able to walk through this, talk through things, and my whole goal and mission is to really simplify all of the financial stuff for you. Make it easy to understand so that you can get back to working on the CEO stuff that you need to do, get back working on the clients that you need to work on, growing your business, growing your marketing efforts, things like that. Because you didn't get into this creative business, whatever it might be, to just sit and look at numbers all day. I know that for a fact. No one wants to do that. So I set out on this mission to do this, and again, I didn't set out in the creative space, but I quickly stumbled and I saw the need. I saw the need of people really feeling very they didn't know what was going on, they didn't understand what was happening. They really shoved all of their bookkeeping tasks and financial tasks in the closet. They might not look at the reports that their bookkeeper or CFO was giving them, and they just forgot about them. And like I said, I saw time and time again that this business could be double, triple, whatever it might be, if they would only look at the reports, because they're telling us so much. It's allowing us to be able to write the next chapter of our business and the next portion of your story in your business. And so to really sum things up and look at stuff, the past is what's able to tell you what to do in the future. So your past historical data, your past finances, however it might be that you can get them, that's what's going to be able to tell you what to do. It's going to be able to tell you how to budget, how to project, and really be able to know, okay, can I make this investment? Can I go full time? Can I grow the business by X amount? It's going to really be able to look at and see things from there. You really need to make sure that you have a good holistic budget instead of just your profit and loss budget. So make sure that you are thinking through all of the things that may be coming out that you are not planning for or that you didn't think about that might hit your bank account. You're planning for investing in, or you're planning for putting money in your emergency fund. You're planning for all of these things. And one thing that Timothy 6:17 says, "As for the rich in the present age, charge them not," wait, I already said that. Hold on, just a sec. Okay, and then the cash flow, like I said, I've talked a lot about cash flow and about managing our bank accounts, because I see time and time again, clients come to us and we're like, I'm gonna have to shut my business down if I don't get this under control. And our cash flow and what's coming in and out of our business bank account is really what's gonna do it, and how we manage that money coming in and out is what's gonna continue to turn it around. It's going to take a little bit of diligence. It's going to take a little bit of, okay, I need to look at this like every single week. I need to be paying attention. But it's really what's going to turn it around. And so it's the heartbeat of your business. It's the thing that makes it operate. It's the thing that makes it go. It's the thing that's going to either make it die, like kill it, or it's going to be the thing that just makes it come alive. Really, if we look at some of our clients, I started working with one at the beginning of this year, and they had an accountant. So for a little bit of foundation laying, an accountant and a bookkeeper and CFO are completely different. So if we look at them and think through things like, okay, doctors are all doctors, they're in the medical field. They have the base medical knowledge, but they all specialize in certain areas of the medical industry. So an accountant, bookkeeper, and CFO are different. And so this company had an accountant. Great, awesome. They filed the taxes, got everything done, and they thought they were doing good. Thought they were doing great. Again, cash flow, keep coming back. Where's all my money in my bank account? So they hired me to do an evaluation and like an audit on their finances. And what I found was they had literally no financial reports. So I wasn't even able to be like, this is where you need to improve. There was no bookkeeping software in place. Okay, there was. They were just invoicing through QuickBooks, but they weren't using it for anything else. But there was no good, quick way to grab the information. And I'm like, okay, before we do anything, we need to wipe everything clean and start over. We need to get a good system in place. We need to be tracking all of your stuff. We need to set your bank accounts up. And it's been a long process to get this to the place that it is now. But the thing is, for this person and this family specifically, is that they want to be able to do more with their kids. They want to be able to do more in their personal life, and they know this business can provide that for them, but they don't know how to. And so the finances is what's going to help them. He is also someone that had cancer a few years ago and just recently had to go back in because they thought it came back. And so that was a big stressful time. It's like, okay, I don't know, like what's going to happen if I can't be in the business? What's going to happen? How is it going to continue to run? And so you don't really know what's going to happen we don't know what's going to happen in our lives. We don't know how things are going to go. We don't know what's going to come up tomorrow. I could get in a car accident on my way home. How's that going to affect my family's income and my income myself? Like, how am I going to pay those bills? And so that's something we had to talk through, and something that now that we have the financials in place and we see the cash flow coming in and out, and we know that, okay, in order to do all these goals and dreams, and in order to prepare in case the tests come back that he does have cancer again, that we know we need to raise prices. We know that we need to mark up all of the contract labor more whenever they're passing it off to the next client. They know that they need to increase their hourly rate. And so that's things that we're starting to implement and get in progress. And in order to do that, again, we had to come back to the finances. And really, when I think of when I first met those people, like my heart really hurt because I'm just like, there's so much this business could do. It's a really good business. It's something that's great, but they just didn't know how to turn it around. The interesting thing is that when I told them what was on their tax return, they're like, what was my profit last year? They didn't even know. They thought, they had no idea. Like they had profited probably like $250,000, and they're like, where is that money? And their accountant didn't tell them. They just, here's a tax return, bye, I'll see you next year. And they're like, wait, that's what it said? And it brought someone else coming in and being like, okay, this is what the actual tax return says. Now, what happened? Because if you're continually struggling with what's in your bank account, that money's going somewhere, but where's it at? And they had bought some equipment, they had bought some vehicles and some trucks and stuff. This was a construction company, which I normally don't do construction companies, so it's kind of a random company that I work with. But they bought a few things that, again, didn't show up on the profit and loss as much. It showed up on the balance sheet. So there's a whole picture. You want to look at the balance sheet, the profit and loss, and your cash flow. That's like the three golden rule for things. And now, like looking back, it brings me so much like joy and happiness because I can see and tell them, and they can see, okay, last month I did this month I can do this. and this is where I can increase prices, and this is what my margins are on my contract labor that I can now raise if I need to. If you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I don't know how to do all this is really confusing, and we just talked about numbers and finances for 56 minutes, and we're all creatives here. The cool thing is that all of this, you can have all of this, you can understand your finances, you can understand your cash flow, and you can make sure that what you're doing in your business and your personal life is in alignment with what Christ wants you to do and with what God wants you to do. And having him direct you and help you is what's going to really propel your business forward and tell you what to do. The really cool thing, in the past 3 years, we've served over 200 businesses looking in-depthly at their finances. And in the past year alone, from these numbers are from January through August. In 2023, our clients have increased their revenue, which is all of their sales, by 116% on average across the whole board. And we serve about 50 clients on a month-to-month basis, in mainly the creative space. And then we've stayed consistently in profit. We've increased their profit by 112%. And that's the big thing, because a lot of times when people increase their sales, their profit margins go down. And so looking at the bottom line and making that a priority is what I want you guys to do. Like, if you're increasing sales, that's great, but how? At what cost? Sometimes increasing sales doesn't make sense because it's going to cost you more. Your profit's going to be down. Really, if you're, like I said, if you're confused, if you're like, wow, I love this, I want this, I need next steps, like, I'll be in the back. We can talk about things. I'd love to be able to just hop on a 20-minute call, like, just to be able to help you walk through things, and just talk about how you can implement new structures, new systems, and see where things are going. I'll be in the back. You can find me there. Love to connect and touch base with everybody. All right, now I think it's a Q&A place, but you can email me if you have any questions. If you're not able to catch me today, Lorianne at profitpriority.co. Our website is profitpriority.co, and then Instagram and Facebook is Profit Priority, and my personal Instagram is LorianneKuntz.co, and my QR goes to my website. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna head over here and do a little Q&A. I actually forgot to mention, so on your name tags, there is a QR code, and that QR code goes to questions that you can submit for each speaker, because we will have a little Q&A after every single speaker session today. So go ahead and do that. You can also ask open questions as well. I love that you framed there was a huge need in the creative community. That is the nicest way you've ever said creatives are bad with money, which is usually true. So I accidentally started a business 4 years ago, and it's been like just stumbling through finances, and it's one of those things where you feel like you have it figured out, and then like some of the routines and processes actually remind me of design thinking, if anyone's familiar with design thinking processes and the way you're approaching this. I think there's a level of, if you're a business owner here, and especially agency, like, you probably ate that up. That was probably good stuff. If you're not, it might have felt a little like super in-depth. What's one like practical step you can take, even in your personal finances, to kind of apply some of all you're doing, right? Like, what's one good step to kind of take in that direction?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that I want you to focus on one thing at a time. So there was a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, and even for myself, like if I look in my, just per se, my marketing efforts, there are so many things that I want to do in my business, but if I only focus on one thing at one time, that's what's going to get me going to the next thing. So in personal finances and in business finances, I want you to take an audit and look at your bank statement and see like, okay, what's happening, and write things down. And my favorite way to do things is print off the bank statement and have 3 different highlighters. Have one that's like, okay, this is necessary. This is kind of like I could get rid of this, and this is like, why did I spend money on this? Because I'm not using it. And a lot of that is software. Like, there's a lot of software that I see clients that are like, why am I spending $2,000 in software in a month? Or maybe it's only like $100 in software a month, but that's really killing their margins depending on the size of the business. So kind of looking through every single transaction is really good.
All right. We got a question from Martha Brown. How would you recommend women who are starting in challenging marriages to take a step Oop, I lost it. Toward financial independence.
Okay, this is fun. If we're talking about women specifically, it's really interesting because if we look back and see how long ago women were able to just get a credit card or sign off on like a loan by themselves, it wasn't that long ago. It was like 50 years ago. And so I think something specifically with women that we struggle with is that we have not been trained up and raised that as much in financial independence as like men have. And so in a specific to where you have marriage, kind of continually like go into it and try to get them on board, because if they're not on board, like things aren't going to work. It's going to be very difficult. So continually like show them why it's important, show them how it ties back to their goals and your goals as a couple, your goals as if it's a business, if we're specifically looking at and how that impacts it, tie it back to how it's going to actually affect them. And I think that's where a good place is to start.
This is great. This is like a layup for you. So I love this question. Sam asked, if I'm starting a new business today, when is the right time to get assistance from someone like you?
Okay, that's really good. Congratulations. Okay, so we see a lot of people come to us whenever they're hitting about $70,000 in annual revenue. So it took me a little bit to get to that number, but anytime before that, it can sometimes be hard to factor in the cost to get a bookkeeper on a month-to-month basis, and it really depends on how you're looking at it. It's not like you're hiring like a part-time person that you need to do all their benefits and stuff. That's why outsourcing is really great. But for us, like I said, we see people coming to us at about 70,000, and then looking at going into CFO services, so a little bit higher level. That's between 70,000 and 250,000 is whenever people are just like monthly support. And then from there, once they get to like 250, 300K plus, that's whenever they need a little bit more support.
All right, this will be our last one. Do you look at both personal and business finances when you evaluate a client's bank accounts? Good questions.
Okay, so we don't do any type of personal budgeting or personal like transactions or anything like that. We want them to be able to take responsibility there, but it comes up a lot. It's something that we talk through. If someone's struggling with their personal stuff, then most likely they're going to be taking out a bunch of draws out of their business. And so then that affects how the business runs. So we definitely look at it and we talk through it. We just don't provide any type of like actual support in doing it, the work. We help set up the systems in place.
I'd imagine there's some overlap of like you're giving them ways in which to be healthier financially, where I'm sure it quickly kind of streams into the personal, hopefully.
For sure. Yes, yep.
That's awesome. Well, let's give it up for Lorianne. Thank you so much for sharing this morning.